With the U.S. still averaging more than 73,000 new coronavirus cases each day, the reigning most valuable player in the NFL joined that group this week. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, sidelined for this weekend's game after testing positive for COVID-19. In August, Rodgers told reporters that he had been, quote, immunized.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. You know, there's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys.
Joining us now is Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio. Michael, let's start with people who have been vaccinated can get COVID-19, but that's not what this is about. He was clearly, or I should say, he certainly seems to be intentionally misleading when he answered that question. He nodded. They said, have you been vaxxed? He nodded, and he said, I've been immunized. Other people haven't been vaxxed. So has he been misleading his team and the NFL, and what's the punishment going to be for that?
Well, Stephanie, he hasn't been misleading his team or the NFL because they know who is and isn't vaccinated, because the players who aren't vaccinated must be tested every single day. The players who are vaccinated are tested only once per week. So the league and the Packers have known about this from the get-go. In fact, he tried to get an exemption from the league based upon a homeopathic treatment he's received that he believes increased his antibodies to the point where it's the same as being vaccinated. The NFL eventually denied that. So they've known, but the rest of us haven't. He lied not to the league or the Packers, he lied to the rest of us by answering the question the way he did. And he's smart enough to know what the message was. Even though he used the word immunized, the context made it clear that he was saying he was vaccinated, because he's not going to judge his teammates who aren't. Yeah, because he was creating the impression that he is. And every image we saw of him in the preseason on the sidelines, when he should have been wearing a mask under the league's protocols, the plain language of the protocols, he should have had a mask on because he wasn't in uniform, no mask. Press conferences in the team facility, in season, should have had a mask on for those. That's one of the league's protocols. So everything he's done has created the impression he's vaccinated, and then we find out yesterday that he's not.
Okay, then if the team knew and the league knew, but he had to follow the protocols, since we clearly saw that he didn't, are there any consequences?
Well, that's something the league is taking up now. The Packers have the frontline responsibility to enforce the protocols, and it's a series of fines, and it can become more aggressive. It, in theory, can result in a suspension. The league is now looking into whether and to what extent the Packers did enforce those protocols against Rodgers. And the background of all of this is a guy who thought about retiring in the offseason, a guy who wanted to be traded and who thought he was going to be traded to a new team. So the Packers may have been tiptoeing on eggshells around him when it comes to this. It's going to be interesting to see whether he was fined at any point by the Packers.
But then just hold on. I know we're out of time, but if the league knew and the team knew, you just had to look up old images of press conferences where he wasn't wearing his mask. Isn't the onus on them for not enforcing anything?
Well, the league will say it was on the Packers, and the league doesn't have the time. The Packers, that's what we're going to find out. We don't know what the Packers will say. We'll see how aggressive the league is in pushing this, because I think the league would just as soon everyone move on, and let's not make this a bigger issue than it already is. I don't think that effort is going to be successful.
All right, then, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Coming up, it was the press